So today we're going to be doing the install of the faucet on the wash tub, and this is going to be a little bit different than what I had originally set out to do. I thought maybe use some black walnut, which would give it a nice dark color, but then I got to thinking I'd like a little bit longer, maybe a little bit longer headboard kind of there, black backsplash, and so I decided to go with some nice red oak. And you can see I've already got, get the camera down here, I've already got it kind of mocked out, and I was going for something rustic. So I kind of wanted, I'm going to be epoxying, putting epoxy, like tabletop epoxy on here. So I don't really mind if there are some imperfections in the wood. To me, that's going to give it kind of a little bit more a rustic appeal. And so I actually kind of was looking for that, but I've got my board planed and kind of mocked out and got it marked here. I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this out, and then we'll go ahead and go over to the shop and let you see how it's coming along. So, I've got kind of a rough mock-up here, and go ahead and show you about what it's going to be looking like. So I need to go ahead and get my hole drilled and my drain run, but I'll go ahead and get to that next. I'm going to go ahead and do an epoxy on this red oak, because that should give it kind of seal off all the pores and any cracks in there, and keep it from, since it's going to be obviously getting splashed and be around the sink and what have you. So I'll go ahead and maybe do a little bit of a video on there and the final installation of the faucet. But we're getting there, and you can see I could try to clean these up a little bit more around the corners, and I may do that. I haven't ruled that out, but I do want it to be a little bit rustic, and this is kind of a quick and dirty job. And so let's move on to the next step. So the key really is just make sure you've got two boards underneath and that you're holding this very steady. So this is going to be the basics of the sink. I've still got to do the epoxy, and we'll see. Still got these seals here to go in, but I just want to make sure that we're all looking good before I go ahead and unscrew this. I got to, of course, get my other screws, and I'm going to miss. I'm actually only going to be hitting on one stud, and so I'm going to see. That's fairly sturdy. I don't know if I'm really not wanting to get in there and do any internal framing, and so what I may do, I'm actually missing a stud over here as well, so I may just put a little block of wood down here and go ahead and just tie off there and call that it. And then in the future, if I don't envision putting a whole lot of strain or stress on here. I'm not going to be leaning on that, so I'm thinking about just leaving it as is. I may go ahead and put countersink my holes, screw holes, but again, that's going to be kind of getting in. So let's go ahead and move forward. Maybe we'll go ahead and get to some epoxy. And I think I am going to maybe touch these lines up just a little bit, maybe smooth them out, or I may just try to let the epoxy come down over these sides. So let's go ahead and move on. Now I could coat, I want to make sure and get a coat of something on all sides of this, because if you don't, then that causes uneven drying, moisture soaking in and out of it, because wood is not, especially in a shop like this, no house, if it's humid, if you run in the heat, if you decide not to run the heat, if you run the air conditioning, it's pulling moisture out of the air. So wood is always going to be pulling, expanding and contracting. And so you always, if you're working on a project like this, especially with air dried lumber, you always want to make sure that you get even your back sides covered. A lot of people will just finish a single side, and then they'll end up with maybe cracking or warping of a project. And these boards were already a little warped. They're seconds that I saved out, so I'm not super worried about that, but I still always do. And I might have put like polyurethane on the back of this, but being that I had this mixed up and I had too much, I'm just going to go with this, and this will make my coating more even. So I was going to do an additional coat on this, and I am still tempted to do so, but this is actually for my needs. This may be all that I need, because I just don't need this to be perfect, but I still think I'm going to, mainly because of these larger. All right, so I think I've just about got this where I like it. And you did notice I can't quite get an even layer down inside this hole. Obviously I want that to be well coated in there. So. The thing I like about this is a Detroit Tough epoxy, and the thing I like about it is a couple of different things. One is that it is ultra clear, so for like doing tabletops, cabinets, this type of thing, fantastic for that. You don't get any of that yellowing going on. The other thing that I like about it is it's pretty good about the bubbles coming out of it. And so I did get a few in here, and if I had been on the ball, I would have had a heat gun, and I would have been in here and kind of getting those out. But this is down and dirty, and you'll go ahead and get an idea for what we're looking at. I also did not intended to have quite as thick a layer as I have here.
So for the purpose of this video, this is going to be the final install. Obviously I'm going to do a little bit of trim work, maybe try to hide some of the plumbing a bit. Although, you know, this is a workshop, I'm not super worried about that. But I do want to go ahead and give you all a little bit of a better view on the backsplash and of the faucet. And I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out. So. And I'm also going to do a little bit, you can see we've got the drain installed. That's going pretty good. But you will notice there's just a little bit of give here on the drain, or on the floor of the sink. And so I probably will. You can get it to stay down a little bit more just by forcing it. That's a common thing in these wash tubs. So just if you're plumbing it, or if you're doing this yourself, just make sure you get your plumber not to plumb the drain in. So go ahead and take a look under here. You can see the Snappy Trap. I went ahead and used the Snappy Trap kit. And if you've got, you know, there's a lot of different kits out there for doing the plumbing. If you want to do it yourself, you can pick one of those up. You can pick up the individual parts, most hardware stores. But that's the basic look. The Snappy Trap was kind of a cool little addition, primarily because you've got that hose in there. If you can see the kind of the flexible hose, and that allows me to work around that back leg there and put in the drain. But anyways, that could have been worked around without it, but it is kind of a cool little feature. So the epoxied backsplash came out pretty good. So that's Detroit Tough epoxy, and it's kind of a cool, it's crystal clear. So I went over that pretty good. I'm not super happy. I got a little bit, I got a helper here today. She's helping me out. But so you can kind of see I got a couple of runs and I got a few bubbles, but overall I'm pretty happy. The bubbles pretty much occurred because of my impatience. I know about working with epoxy and dealing with that, and I just didn't apply the heat and let it sit. I got some drips down the bottom, which once again I let those stay in, and I was going to sand those off, but I decided to go ahead and leave those. And my actually the sound quit working, so I may overdub some other video that I did, or bear with me if I'm repeating if it didn't. But so the dips on the epoxy down here, but I went ahead and left that because it actually kind of locks this sink in. Those drips kind of almost create a ledge right around here, and it gives it kind of a lock in. So I like that. I went ahead and left them. That looks cool. So the red oak, it kind of darkened up the color, and but super crystal clear. It's going to be pretty durable in the with water splashing up on it. I'm pretty happy with the outcome of it. But really any good semi-waterproof type of a finish would have worked on that backsplash. So this is the final finish for what a mudroom sink could look like. Obviously, I know some of you are going to be doing a better finished job than I am. I've got Brego box and my hot water heater right here, and I may even plumb in a different. I really do not mind the way that this Camp Lux hot water heater works, but I kind of a little bit more envisioned using it, being able to take it and use it. Well, let me go ahead and cut this off and just be watching for maybe a review video on it as well if you're interested. So more of a portable. Maybe I'll plumb in on the electric or a little bit more standalone unit. But anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up this video. So final install. If you have any interest, any questions in these tubs and the faucets and the drain kits, make sure get with us. Check out our website, like our video, subscribe, ring the bell, and check out our channel. We're proud to offer videos kind of like this, install assembly videos to some of our products, random videos, and obviously the review of Axis knives and Country Living tools. So check that out, and look forward to seeing y'all on another video. Bye now.